So our first centre diamond is completed, and I've also ruled up the rest of my lines as per the instructions. So we have our next line here, plus then we have our cross lines again for our next lot of diamonds. But this is the one we need to use now. So instead of putting it on the diagonal, this time we need to put it on the straight. And I'm going to align with my notches on my hoop and make sure that I have it centered correctly with the notches. And I can just feel my notch under there. I can see my notch there is correct. So I will use my curved edge pins so that I can hold it in place. And I'll also check on the machine with the precise positioning as well to make sure that it is accurate. Now, if like me you have the large hoop, you can actually do the two designs in one hooping, which is what I'm doing in the 360 by 200 hoop. If you don't have that size hoop, you can do two of the smaller designs. Now, it will be the same vertical line, but you will have to mark the centre of each design, and it will be 3 3/8 of an inch from that centre horizontal line down. So you will need to mark the two centre points for this particular design. So I'm going to start off checking my centre position. Now, unlike when I was using it on the diagonal, I've only got 4 pins in place now because we're on the grain of the fabric, not on the diagonal. So I will go into my precise positioning and I will check my centre point and make sure that it is in the exact spot, and it's not quite, so I will adjust now and make sure that my needle down is in the exact spot that I have marked on my lines. And now I know that it's in the right place. I will add my basting stitch around the design and start my embroidery. So we have our fabric basted to the tearaway, and the embroidery design is starting to stitch out. But you also notice that I have the bulk of the fabric to the left so that we don't have a huge amount to have to worry about it through the throat of the machine. Now this is, even though I have joined these together, this is still two separate designs, so it will stitch one and complete that one before it goes on to the other. So if you are doing it in two separate embroidery designs, it'll be exactly the same. But instead of centering to the middle of the fabric, you will center to the point which will be the middle of the design, which is 3 3/8 of an inch down from that horizontal center line. So our first colour is complete. Now we're starting on the second colour of this particular design, which you can see is the stitches that go underneath the scalloped edge. So we've finished our second colour. Now we're into that silver metallic to do the crosshatch centre section. So these designs don't take that long to stitch out, so you'll see it coming together very quickly. So now we're up to our last colour for this top part of the project, and in this case, because I'm doing the blue and white version, this is the dark blue. On the original one, the Christmas Star Runner, I have done this section in green. So choice is yours, you can do whatever colour you choose. So now we've got our two designs here completed, and I have just removed the basting stitches. So what we have to do is exactly the same on this side here with the lines we've ruled on that side. So we need to actually turn it round again so that the bulk of the fabric is outside the machine and this smaller section is under the throat, and stitch those two designs using this line here. Once that's complete, we repeat the diamond on the diagonals that we've already drawn, and then our embroidery part is complete until we put the backing on, and then we do our quilting in the hoop. So now I've finished all of my diagonal pieces, and I'm starting to do the outer two diamonds, which, as you can see again, I have my fabric on the diagonal using those 45-degree cross lines as my centre markings. I've precise positioned in the centre so that my notches all match up and my embroidery is ready to go. Okay, so I've now finished the duplication of that centre motif and the duplication of these two in between ones. So all the main embroideries are completed. So what we have to do now is the quilting, and I'm going to show you two different techniques that you can use for quilting in the hoop so that you get this beautiful quilted effect on the back. So once all of the main embroideries are completed, we need to add our backing. Now with my backing, I have got another layer of parlan. So the parlan is attached to the front, which we embroidered on, and I've also attached it to the backing, and then used quilt basting spray to adhere the two pieces together. So once we've done that, we want to do this quilting. So because in this version I'm using the silver thread, I've done my quilting in silver, and I have my quilting in my bobbin, with silver as well. So the measurements that we need to do are actually in our instruction booklet, but I'll run through that. The first thing we do is we rule a horizontal line that connects each point of our main designs. So that runs all the way through, connecting those points. What we need to do then is measure between those points. Now, when I did this, it was just under 7 inches. So what we need to do is mark the point between. If you have a look on my ruler, the 7-inch is just either side of the line. So I centre it as best I can, and then I mark the 3.5-inch point. Rather than trying to work out the difference between 6 and 9/8 or 9/16, it's actually easier just to move it that little fraction either side and mark the 3.5. Once we've got that done, we need to measure down. Now again, we have a measurement that is 1 9/16. Now I know that sounds an odd measurement, but the easy way to do that again is with your ruler. That's our 1.5-inch point there. 1 9/16 is actually halfway between 1.5 and 1 5/8. So we just mark that visual point in between, and using the straight line of our ruler, we then mark our horizontal. Now these lines actually carry all the way through to the opposite side where we will do the quilting. So we need to mark all of those centre points for our quilting, and we also need to make sure we take that to the end. It makes it much easier for hooping. Now there are two ways of hooping. The easiest and quickest way is to use a magnetic hoop. Now, if you have a magnetic hoop, Most machines have magnetic hoops. Now our FAF has a 240 by 150 magnetic hoop, and it is perfect for doing this. The other option is still to use the normal 240 by 150 hoop, and we based and we cut the backing away. So I will demonstrate both techniques and you can decide which one will be easier for you. So the first technique I'm going to show you is with the magnetic hoop, and I have extra magnets. I think when you get them you get 6, and I've bought a pack of extra magnets so I can hold this on securely. Now my fabric, I'm just putting it over the edge, and this won't be centered in the hoop, but it is, the design will still fit within that. So we've just got to make sure we get that fabric onto that edge so our magnets can hold. So we've got our notches, as we always do. So I'm starting off with my center on the notch, and I'm just putting a couple of magnets on because then I'm going to use the machine's positioning features to make sure it's all okay. So I'll just put those couple on for the moment, and then I'll take my hoop to the machine, I'll center and make sure everything's in the right position, and then we can stitch with no basting involved.